All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. And Mike Shoesmith, welcome back. Listen, I understand that you have a fairly reasonable solution about the Palestinian debacle in the Middle East. What's your solution for this?
Well, you guys know your Bibles. You will know that the Jewish exodus from Egypt occurred around 1450 to 1410 BC. There is a 7.5-foot high monolith erected by the Egyptian pharaoh Merneptah that dates from around 1207 BC. The hieroglyphic inscriptions on that stone make reference to the Israeli people as an established group in Canaan. The Merneptah stele, it's called, is clear and irrefutable evidence that the Jews were in Canaan by at least the 13th century BC. Islamic time now begins with Muhammad's flight from Mecca to Medina in 622 AD. So a long time after.
Yeah.
And if the Jews in Israel predates the beginning of Islam by at least 1,800 and possibly 2,000 years, how can Muslim Arabs lay claim to the Holy Land and call Israel Palestine?
Right, thank you.
The truth is, they can't. Israel belongs to the Jews. You know, listen, here's my solution. And I don't pretend that anyone should agree with me, but here is my solution. My solution is there is no two-state solution here. There is a 21-state solution. Muslims must go back to the 21 Arab countries they originally came from. Why aren't they welcome in their own home countries, Carl? I mean, 80% of the population of Palestine are refugees from their own country.
Right.
I think about this. Princeton's Arab professor of Middle East history named Philip Hitti. He says, quote, "It is common knowledge that there is no such thing as a Palestine in history." And Syrian dictator Hafez Assad, he says, quote, "There is no such thing as a Palestinian people. There is no Palestinian entity." Thank you. And here's a quote from my favorite Arab American. I know he might be yours too, Joseph Farah. This is priceless, by the way. He says, "The truth is that Palestine is no more real than Never Never Land. Palestine has never existed as an autonomous entity. It was ruled alternately by Rome, by Islamic and Christian crusaders, by the Ottoman Empire, and briefly by the British after World War I. The British agreed to restore at least part of the land to the Jewish people as their homeland." Now, it appears that nowhere in the Quran is Palestine mentioned either, and neither is Jerusalem ever mentioned in the Islamic book. I mean, there are assumptions about a temple that may or may not exist. They call it the Far Temple, right? And it's assumed by the Islams that the reference in the Quran it's assumed that it's talking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. But nowhere is it ever mentioned Jerusalem in the... Now, how does that speak about the Muslim prophet? That the word Palestine appears nowhere in the Quran. Right. Neither is Jerusalem ever directly mentioned. Right. So, I mean, here we have Jerusalem mentioned throughout the Bible. and Israel. Right, and Israel throughout the Bible, and Jerusalem as the capital. By the way, many people will not know this, but it is enshrined within U.S. law that the U.S. Embassy must be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but that is U.S. law. Yes, I am aware of that. Right. I knew you were, by the way. I knew you were. But now every 6 months, there is a caveat to that. That is that every 6 months, they kick that can down the street. Right. And every 6 months, the president signs an edict declaring that they're going to postpone the movement of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv, the currently assumed to be the capital of Israel, but really the capital of Israel is Jerusalem. Right. And it is, and that is, by the way, that is enshrined in U.S. law. Right. I say it's time to move that capital to Jerusalem. What do you think? Yeah, I absolutely agree. So what's your solution for the Palestinian situation? I say that they have to be welcomed back into. Why don't their own home countries want them? Thank you. That's my question. Well, and it's time for their own home countries. The 21-state solution is to have those 21 countries absorb their own people back into their countries. But the truth of the matter is, they don't want peace. No, they want those people are there as a broom. you'll notice that that Gaza is shaped like like one of those wide sweeper brooms, and it's shaped like that. And they just want to put the pole in the broom and just sweep Israel into the Mediterranean. If you can imagine that in the theater of your minds, Gaza being the broom, and somebody's trying to put a stick in that a handle in that broom and shove Israel into the Mediterranean. Because, like Yasser Arafat once said, Yasser Arafat, founder of the PLO, he said there will be peace in the Middle East when the last Jew is drowned in the Mediterranean.
That's right. He did say that. And he did say that. In fact, we're getting ready to have to take another time out, Mike. But before we do, let's just settle this. You and I have talked about this before. Israel is the only national entity that has ever inhabited that land that they now call Palestine. They're the only nation that had borders, a military, their own coinage, kings, a history, a written history, a peoples, a language, a culture. They're the only nation. Before that, there were just tribes of folks, like America, American Indian tribes, that Native Americans that fought against and enslaved each other. That was what was going on in that land until Israel settled that land. They're the only nation in history. There never has been a Palestine. That was established in AD 135 by the Emperor Hadrian when he was running out the Jews out of the land, because Palestine is the Latin word for Philistines, and he was hoping that the Jews would not want to live in the land of the Philistines. That's all that is. It's a farce.